What's up, everybody? Welcome again to the Chasing Creativity Podcast. This is episode 16 with electronic music producer Khåen. Hello, friends. So episode 16 is here. It's weird to say the word episode 16. Time is moving extremely quickly. Almost December, almost 2019. It is very, very strange. But I will say that I'm extremely grateful and fortunate that I can be here releasing episode 16 going into the end of the year. Of course, having started this podcast this year and having an episode like this to share with you is really cool. I feel super, super fortunate. So before jumping any further, that song that was just shared out, that clip that was just shared out, that is from an artist named Schau, S-C-H-A-U. The song is currently untitled. I will say that via Instagram, I will be sharing out his SoundCloud, Spotify, all those places where you can listen to his music. That way, you can listen to all of his tracks that he's releasing, and all of that important information will be found there. He is a friend of the show, so we've been speaking via Instagram. He's been sharing music with me, and once I heard the caliber at which he is producing, I immediately asked if I could share out some of his music on a podcast, because I'm already a fan of what he is producing. I think it's really, really high-level stuff. So, what I will say, too, I am intending to continue to release songs like this in future episodes. So if you do want your music shared out, just simply email me or write me on Instagram. The email is chasingcreativitypodcast@gmail.com, or Instagram is chasing.creativity.podcast. Just let me know if you're interested. Send me music and I will share it out at the beginning of a given episode. That way this can act as like a community where you're able to showcase your music as well. That's what I'm looking to do. So switching gears, talking a little bit about today's episode, I'm really, really excited about releasing this one. I was able to sit and have a chat with Khåen on his most recent release, Solace in the Night. Solace in the Night is an 8-track album release on Lane 8's record label, This Never Happened. Before we jump into today's episode, we will be playing a clip from the first track on Solace in the Night, titled As We Went. I think that's one of my favorite tracks on the album. I think it sets the tone for the album. It's a beautiful, beautiful track. So I will be sharing that out before we jump into the conversation. If you'd like to hear more of his music, you can check him out on Spotify or SoundCloud. He is featured on the This Never Happened playlist on Spotify, which is of course made by the album. They curated a playlist. Or you can check him out on Instagram at KHAEN. So lots of ways to get in touch and check out his music. If you're looking just right now to search him, say on Spotify or SoundCloud, it's KHAEN. So you can find him there. Now, if you've been enjoying these episodes, please subscribe via iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify. It's a great way to get access to episodes when they release. We release every Wednesday, so that way you'll see it every time it releases. Really helps the show. And also, if you're looking to help the show in other ways, please just consider rating and reviewing on iTunes or Google Play or Stitcher. Doing that will help boost the ratings of the show in iTunes, and it will help it move up just a little bit so more eyes can see the podcast, and thus better recognition means this thing keeps moving and guests will continue to come on and all this cool stuff. So please, if you are enjoying, just consider rating and reviewing. It makes a big, big difference. Now, just last thing before moving forward, to show my appreciation, I am doing a t-shirt giveaway. I designed some Chasing Creativity t-shirts. I do want to give one away here in December. I wish I could give one to every person listening to the episodes, but I would be I can't buy them all to do that. So anyways, what I'm saying is, if you are interested in being considered for this giveaway, just email me again. I hate mentioning it, but chasingcreativitypodcast@gmail or via Instagram. And I will be picking a winner on December 15th and giving away a t-shirt just to show my appreciation. I think I'm going to continue to do it like monthly, because that way, I just think it's a cool way to say thanks, because I really, again, am just I feel super fortunate. I'm super appreciative that you are listening, that guests are coming on and having these awesome conversations. So that's really it. Now, last thing before moving forward, I think I might have said this already, but this is really the last. Next episode is with Julian Cisneros. He does film and television. He does music composition, for television and film. He's worked with the likes of Lucasfilms, Disney. So those are just to name a couple. If you look at the breadth of his work, which I will be sharing out links on Instagram, it is tremendous. I mean, he's done music for like Lamborghini commercials, Asahi beer commercials, Black Diamond. It's crazy. And he is just the coolest guy. It was so easy to chat with him and talk about these things. So that's a really cool episode to look forward to as well. So that's coming next week. So look forward for that. And that's it. I hope you enjoy this episode. I know I did. I will be sharing out links to get in touch with him if you're looking for SoundCloud links and Spotify links. All that stuff will be on Instagram. And until then, I will speak with everyone again soon. Awesome. So thank you for joining today. I know it's always a little strange. I think I say this too often on a given podcast, but I know it's strange to have someone totally random reach out to you and say, hey, do you want to be on a podcast? But I do appreciate it, man. I'm really looking forward to this one too, because with the recent releases you've had out over the past couple of years, there's some really, really exciting stuff to dig into. So thank you, first of all.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's kind of strange to be invited over Instagram, but it's also very nice to have the opportunity. And if you ever, you should always take the opportunity to reach out, because I really appreciate it. So if anyone else wants to reach out to me, just it's more flattering than anything to have been invited to podcasts and stuff. It's I appreciate it. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, of course. And I just love doing these. Each one has just been awesome in its own right. And, again, being able to do this is just super, super cool. So, so let's just jump right in. Your career in terms of releasing over the last couple years has just been amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Because, Lane 8's compilation and record label of This Never Happened, of course, having those two standalone compilations come out of recent, or releases rather of recent, and you were featured on the first, right?
Yes. The first, the Root to Branch, Volume 1.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, let's start back there as to what that process was like, just maybe getting introduced to Lane 8, getting your music out there, and then I want to definitely dig into maybe the creative pieces behind putting those tracks together.
Yeah, definitely. No problem. So, first off, I started back in, I think it was mid to early 2016. Mm-hmm. I sent my first song to Lane 8, and it was never released. I was, in that stage, I was still figuring out what I wanted Khåen to sound like properly. I had done a few scattered releases earlier as Khåen, but I was never happy with the direction it took. Because I don't want it to sound like I never wanted to sound like the standard house in a way. I wanted to have I wanted to create something that if you heard a Khåen song, you knew it was a Khåen song for some reason. It's very difficult to get to that point with your music, and I still don't, I suppose, but I'm getting there, hopefully. But yeah, so I sent a few demos early on to Lane 8, and he really liked it, which I really appreciated. He responded to the first demo I ever sent, and he was like, keep sending me stuff, which was very encouraging and gave me lots of motivation.
Oh, yeah.
So I sent him, I believe, what was first? I think I sent him Whims first, actually, which was the second one that was released in the Rooster Branch, and then Kyrie I sent later on. And he liked them both. I wanted to feature them on the Rooster Branch compilation, which was very surreal at the moment. I never imagined it. Happening. So that was very, very fun for him to take notice of my work. And I don't believe I would be anywhere near where I am in terms of motivation or the way I produce and the amount I allow myself to produce hadn't it been for him believing in me in those first steps of the project. Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. And so a lot of this, okay, of course, Roots of Branch Volume 1 was released in 2017. You mentioned sending demos in 2016. When did you start working on electronic music? I mean, has this been a long process kind of culminating what your sound, what your intention with your sound is? Did you start at a young age with piano or what was that like?
Yeah, so I have I've been producing since late. I started roughly very early 2012. So I've been producing for a few years now. Excuse my math. It's 6 years, yeah, right? I hope so. Yeah, that's right. I started producing. I was very inspired by what I believe most producers, artist producers were at that time, which was like deadmau5 and Avicii.
Yeah.
Always been very enamored with that melodic sound, melodic house. Because, early on, house was just loop-based, and for people taking it a step further with making it the progressive house was very amazing to me when I first discovered that. The early progressive house, mind you.
Right.
Not what it became like later on when like EDM became bigger. Because early on it was very, the likes of Mandarin Girl by Book of Shade, if you know that song. I was... but as EDM became harder and stuff, I joined in on that. When I started, when I produced for 2-3 years, I went into harder music. Yeah. Not quite hard style, but I suppose I was dabbling in trance for a bit. Not under Khåen, of course, but which I think is really great. But at the current point, I think trance is a bit. It kind of lacks what was really cool with trance, which was the mellowness, and I think for example, Above and Beyond still has that going for them with keeping it not too hard. Yeah, because then I think for me, trance loses a bit of its magic. What was the question again? I think I went out on a tangent for a bit there.
No. That's the stuff I love to get into, is just totally freeform, wherever it goes. Absolutely. But so it looked, or so I understand, you started producing it around 2012, and so starting with some of the trance influence, did that help in maybe build up your foundation as a producer, being able to kind of dabble in different genres a bit, or was that just more of a time where you were getting exposure to different genres and it allowed you to really focus in on the sound of Khåen? Yeah.
I realized one day when I was producing a hard song, I don't know how it came to me, but I was just this is not me. At heart, I'm a very mellow person. So being super aggressive with my sound, that wasn't really fitting for me, and I started becoming really jaded with my music. I didn't like it anymore. I thought it was crap, basically. So it took a while for me to realize that. It was because you don't want to have to start something new. That's a very big step from going in unknown track.
Totally. Yeah.
And that's what I think. I think more people should just realize, reflect over where their path is taking them. and like think, is this making you happy? Is this accomplishing something for you inside?
Right.
So I was very happy that I did that I took that step and changed the direction. But so with me making trance and harder music, what it helped me to do was, from a producer standpoint, it really helped me with making sounds, because harder sounds are usually way more sound design intensive, and making very weird sounds to stand out. And I was very dabbling with very deep into sound design for a bit when I was doing heavier stuff. Nowadays, I try to keep it more simple because I like more pure sounds. But it's been a tool I can put in the toolbox, and also with harmonies and chords. And I very much like strings and horns. In my music, and that probably comes from back when I was making trance.
Because there's like a lot of, maybe, I don't want to say like a breakdown, but there'll be sections of trance songs where it'd be like very string intensive, right?
Yeah.
For that, what am I looking for? Like orchestral sound. And I definitely see that. Say with the track Whims, right? You have that section in the song that switches over to the strings portion, and then it goes back into that more deep house sound. So you kind of can quickly go into one section and then switch out of it. I noticed, and that's something that really stuck out when I was listening to your music of recently. I went through, I've been a fan of your music, of course, but I went through everything kind of from top to bottom to get a sense of the feel you're looking to emote through your music, and I got the sense of that, I guess, is what I'm alluding to.
Thanks.
Of course, is breaking into those string sections, which I love that stuff. I really, really love it, and then going back right into the more deep house feel.
Definitely. I appreciate that. So that's the part of the sound I was going for, and it's of course always developing. I'm after Solace in the Night, I felt kind of a chapter was over with that very orchestral sound, but I might go back to it a bit. But I'm trying to work on taking the sound in a slightly different direction.
Interesting.
Very much still, yeah.
Yeah, well, no, if you don't mind, what sound are you looking to go in then from here?
Well, I am very to describe what I want to do with Khåen is I want to make it. I try to make it beautiful, but in a kind of an ugly way, if that makes sense. I want to have it sounding beautiful, but not in the very I want it to hit you in the face in a way, but also still have melodic elements. It's so I'm working on creating synthstar that are more brash in a sense, but they still work, and people can still appreciate the melodies. If I trying to explain what's going on in my head with my music, but very hard. But I hope it makes sense in some way.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the fun, is having an idea that. I think a lot of times, as a producer will mention, sometimes the thing they're going for, they can kind of understand the direction they want to go in their head, but they can't really maybe write it out clearly on paper. It's that process of sitting in front of the DAW, sitting in front of a keyboard and working for hours and hours, and then suddenly things start to click and you're like, this is what I was thinking of, this is what I wanted to do, but I couldn't verbalize it.
Definitely. So that's the process I'm currently in, and I'm starting to get some shape and form of what I want to do now. So hopefully I can recreate that several times with some new songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, let's dig in, if you don't mind, a little bit into Solace of the Night, right? So that was a mini album that was released purely on This Never Happened.
Yeah.
The second full release on This Never Happened. As I understand it, first being Anderholm, is that correct? I think.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
Apart from Lane 8, it's the second full release, and Anderholm's very great. I believe it's called Flight of the Sparrow.
Yeah.
Also a very great song. More orchestral focus than mine, but I really appreciate that.
Yeah. So what was that process then, going about it and putting together an album, right? Because I would imagine creatively it's going to be different to say we have, let's say, 8 tracks here that are going to line up one after the other, and you want to have a distinctive sound in each track, but then for the progression of the album from start to finish, you want to kind of go on ebbs and flows. And I noticed that a bit in the progression of that album as well. So I thought that would be something interesting to dig into.
100%. I will say it's overall, I think Solace in the Night is quite heavy in the sound and the sounds used. I purposefully put, at least I wanted to have a little bit of a break there, which was in fact Solace in the Night, the title track. So with it being a mini album and being 8 tracks, it was not in the way that other artists do a concept album, where they have a clear idea of what they want to accomplish. I sent tracks like one after one to Lane 8, and songs started compiling up in a way.
Yeah.
So I wanted to, in the end, we agreed that it would be best to make it in album format. So without his help, it probably wouldn't have been a full-on album experience, which I think it turned out to be in some way. But he helped me figuring out where, with the track listing, and helping me figure out how to make the album flow correctly in a track listing sense. And also I made some edits to it to make it feel more like an album. And I think the way it worked, I usually also do, I try to avoid having drums in the intros of my songs. And kicks and stuff to make it feel more like a song and not like a club banger in a way.
Right.
Because I don't like. It's just a personal preference I have to having it like go into the melodies first and then introduce the kick and bass and those drum elements later.
Yeah.
So the creative process behind it was the title of Solace in the Night is kind of in the way it was conceived as an album. The nights I spent in darkness, complete darkness, toiling away at the work until it chiseling away at the sounds until it became something I think I could present for the world. This is something so in Norway, if you come here during the right or the wrong season, depending on how you look at it, it will be very dark all the time.
Right, because you're very far north. Yeah.
So it usually nowadays it becomes dark at like completely pitch black at like 4 p.m.
Oh, wow.
So that gives me a lot of time. During those times, you don't really get motivated to do much, not for me.
Yeah.
It's usually, I don't like that time of year, but I also love Norway because it contrasts, you appreciate the warmth much more when the cold comes around, half the year. So it basically, with so much darkness and not me being motivated to do much outside, it turns me into producing much easier. And in that way, Solace in the Night came about because it's the way it was conceived. It's dark all the time in Norway. It affects me psychologically. It's something I love and hate about Norway.
Yeah. Oh, that is so cool. I just think that's amazing that you found that there are certain times of the year, so it's going to be darker, as you mentioned, Norway, say at 4 p.m. It's pitch black, and those are the times that you'll move towards producing, right? And it's funny because I've seen that come up quite often, that producers will wait till middle of the night until they start working on music and everyone's asleep and everyone's away, and then they can really focus in. But you found that based on where you live, that there's such long periods where that happens, that those are the times you feel maybe most creative or most able to go and work on these albums. That's so interesting. That's so cool.
So that, in that sense, it's very, very nice because I usually can't work when it's light outside. So that's why I also create very many ideas during the winter period, and I usually finish the ideas during summer periods.
Oh, interesting. So would you say that in summer period, it's maybe more of like an editing process, like you've gone through then and got 100%. Interesting. Wow, cool.
So that also works for me. So generally that's what I do. I chisel away ideas during the summer, and I usually make ideas during the winter.
Oh, that's fascinating. I think that is so cool.
It's how I work. At least it works for me at the moment. So
yeah. Wow. So then moving forward, do you find that so you mentioned that Solace in the Night had a distinctive sound, but now you're playing with ideas moving forward in terms of where you want the sound for Khåen to go. Do you find that if you were to maybe move outside of, say, if you just for example, if you thought about producing, say, in the middle of summer, would you extrapolate that sound is going to be much different? I mean, does setting them based on where you are have a large influence in the sound that's coming from the music?
Oh, definitely. It definitely can. I have never spent too much time during summer producing producing ideas.
Mm-hmm.
But I imagine if I did that, it would sound quite different.
Yeah.
I have some songs in the workshop, kind of at the moment, which was done during summer. So, for example, I have a lot of songs in that I'm currently working on that are written in major key. And like even apart from pop music, I notice a lot of songs, more so than any other genre, is written in minor key in club music.
Right.
So that's why it's funny, because you get very different harmonies when you keep pushing towards major keys, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And many of those ideas were conceived during the summer.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes me happier as well. I spent some time working on darker music for a bit, which has its own rewards, but it works well for me at the moment to use major keys, major chords, major harmonies. That makes me happier, you know?
Yeah. Oh, and just from my perspective, I'm just purely doing this kind of as a passion project for fun on the side when I can find time. But I have noticed that if I'm in the same mindset where I'm looking to really emote through a song that's going to be a darker feel, I'll leave a session, say I sit for 3 or 4 or 5 hours, and it will have drained me. I feel drained. You really will put yourself into it, and it can take a lot out of you, versus if you are going into it and you're looking to make a more uplifting, happy song that you would imagine that people are going to feel happy listening to.
Yes.
For me personally, I'll leave and I'll feel a little bit more light. I'll feel a little bit happier. So, So I can imagine that. Depending on you're focusing on these times where it's dark in Norway, and you're working on these heavier emotive tracks, I would imagine that has a lot of influence, as you say. Yeah
it does. And I think when I take the music out, when the music is played out, it's supposed to be a good time, it's not supposed to be a sukkfest of people crying in the corner. So especially with club music, so I think one should take some time to indulge in happier melodies as well, because I think that's something people can appreciate hearing when they're out partying or whatever,
Right. Well, and everyone takes their own thing from a given track too. A person can go into writing a given track and they might feel that it's very somber and dark, and someone could feel totally different. They'll pull away from it and they'll be like, yeah. So that's such an interesting, because when I listen to your music, I feel like it's a perfect blending of relaxed, emotive, like deep house, but it's not. I don't feel that it's in a dark, somber way. It's still with like the bass. It's still kind of or not the kick in the bass. It's still right there in front of your face. Depending on the track, it can hit you. I'm thinking of like Kelpie, that track where after Solace in the Night, it kind of dips down a little bit, and then that track really brings it back, and it's right in your face. So,
that's Kelpie. I personally think I really like that song, kind of, or I do like that song, and it's how do I say it? It's I think for me, when I wrote that song, I was in a happy place. But I understand what you mean. It could be interpreted being a more somber song as well, depending on how I look at it. And it's very much, that particular song is very much inspired by disco, but I wanted it to be. I think disco can be quickly associated with being cheesy, so I wanted to shift the focus in a way and make it more disco in a more electronic sense. And as far as Norway, the club scene goes, or the export in terms of electronic music, you have this genre called space disco.
Okay.
And you can find it being produced by some artists, for example, Todd Terje, if you've heard about him, and Prince Thomas, which are probably the two biggest, and Lindström, of course. There are 3 artists from Norway, quite big, I would say, and they do disco sounds, but in a modern way. I was very inspired by that, and so I wanted to make that as a kind of a tribute to that sound, which very much had its startup in Norway.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, so I'm not very familiar with that genre. So then, is it, if you don't mind kind of digging in there a bit, is it mixing your distinctive sound from Solace in the Night and pulling on some of those inspirations, I guess I'll say, and kind of making this melding of the two then. Yeah
definitely, that's what I want to accomplish. So after this, you should definitely check it out. I think it's a very interesting take on disco, which kind of it removes kind of the cheesiness of it in a bit.
Yeah
and introduces some new twists and turns on that genre.
Interesting.
It's very cool.
Yes, it was space disco, right? Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'll check it out. I'm taking a note here. Yeah, that's so cool. So it's so interesting to hear as well that a lot of the inspiration that you're pulling on, of course, is going to be local to where you live, right? So of course the surrounding, the music that's popular from where you are is going to have this huge influence. But now we're at such an interesting time because with the internet, everyone has exposure to all these other different genres. So we can hear like this kind of path that's been created with like you and Lane 8 and Anderholm. That's like this emotive, deep house, right? So it's so cool because now there's this whole melding across the world. People are pulling on inspirations from all these different genres because we have exposure to it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's great. I think that's very cool that that we have this we can with Spotify, for example. Not mentioning with Apple Music recently coming out and onto the market, it's easier than ever to like just discover new artists every day, especially with, for example, Spotify's Discover Weekly playlists. I use that a lot because it's really great. I look forward to every Monday where it selects some songs for me to listen to, and suddenly I fall in love with a new artist or band or producer, and I think that's great with being able to have every genre ever at your fingertips, at your disposal to listen to and enjoy. I also, however, think it may have some negative effects in my mind, with it making it has the potential to make a lot of artists uniform in their sound.
Right.
In the sense that when I've been thinking about this, if let's say if you blend every color ever, it creates white. Does that make sense? And in the same sense, I think when you can be exposed to everything and there's nothing that limits you, I think it might make your songs generic in a way. Hard to explain, hard to articulate it for me, but I think back in the day, sounds were more local. You had Atlanta had a different sound from, for example, grunge was a very local thing back in the day, and that's no longer the thing. Sounds can no longer develop on their own in the local biome, if you know what I mean. It's
absolutely,
and that's kind of. I think it might hamper what sounds could be created if people could only be exposed to certain sounds and not others, if you know what I mean. But
I totally do. Yeah.
But at the same time, that's I guess that's a sacrifice that has to be made, because being able to discover music as well that you might never listen to is also a great thing. So, yeah. Right.
No, I the thing that popped into my mind when you were mentioning that, I was actually thinking about grunge, as you mentioned, because there's this great documentary on Netflix where it's called The 90s, and they're give an episode on politics and culture and all these things, but there's one on music, and seeing what music was like leaving the 80s, right? So there's, of course, like disco, and then there's like hair metal at the very tail end of the 80s, and then to see grunge come on the scene versus the poppy music that was also popular at the time, and you realize the influence of a band like Nirvana being so different and groundbreaking. It almost has to be that I just put myself there. It's like if they had exposure to lots of different genres, would that unique sound still come out of there?
Exactly.
I
will never know now, because I don't think you can take back the internet. It's there now.
Totally.
It's going to be there forever. So at the same time, maybe other bands come around, which were products of the internet entirely.
Right.
For example, with trap rap and all that stuff. But I completely understand what you're saying. Like, would grunge be out there if the internet was a thing? And would Nirvana ever exist? That's a big question. And they were very influential at the time.
Oh yeah,
so,
yeah. It's interesting for that reason too, because now everyone has the opportunity to make music on their computer almost for free, right? It can be done in a bedroom and you can make amazing, amazing music from home versus 10 or 20
Yes.
years ago when you had to go to a studio, or the synths you had to buy were extremely expensive and the software was impossible to use, not that I lived through that, of course. I mean, just from what I've
Yeah.
heard, but for that reason, you can get these extremely talented people that can start this as a hobby, and so that's very cool. And distributing music can be free. You can put your music on SoundCloud and Spotify for nothing. And it is such an interesting
Yeah.
time. I hadn't thought of that, as you mentioned, with like, if you have every color, the spectrum of colors, you'll just get one uniform color, and
Yeah.
with so many musicians out there today releasing music, I understand it can become difficult to create a unique sound just because there's
Yeah.
so many musicians. But at the same point, so one thing I like to think about is you also have these little almost biomes, if you will, for fans, right? So you can start looking around with music and stumble upon something that you didn't even know was there, and it's in its own little corner. It's this genre of music, and there's all these fans supporting those artists, and it's just almost living there, doing its own thing. You would have never known it was there, and that can also be supported by the internet. If people are exposed to the
100%.
music, and yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah, it's two different takes, and I agree. It can still happen. Like, there's still lots of places without internet, for example,
Right.
Which with local music and everything. But I completely agree. It's very interesting with like local fandoms and local sounds staying local, and you can be introduced to that. For example, traveling to a different country, and suddenly you see music and cultures that you never knew existed.
Yeah.
Because the internet still doesn't encapsulate everything, of course.
Right.
So I completely agree.
Yeah, it's such an interesting. It's just so fun to be able to think about those things, and also, I mean, just the fact that from my perspective, I'm able to have this conversation with you. I mean, what it's so bizarre to me that these kind of things can exist. It's so cool because there's things like Instagram and Discord and all of these different communities where you can just reach out to someone and say, hey, what's up? How are you doing? And it's no longer this crazy barrier in between you and your idols, right? It's just you're all in this thing together.
That's very true, and like I think many artists wouldn't have existed without this thing emerging. With, like, for example, I use Ableton for my music making, and with investment it took back in the day to start making music.
Oh yeah,
I would most definitely never have entered into this this venture,
right? Right.
And I think many others wouldn't. Perhaps even deadmau5 wouldn't have started if the entry hadn't been so low.
Yeah.
You never know.
Oh yeah.
It's if all it takes is cracking a software to use, and suddenly you can make every sound imaginable.
Exactly.
If you're good enough with the program.
Yeah. It's all out there.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. As I said, I would most certainly never go down this path, and I'm thankful for it. Thankful for it today.
Yeah.
And also with, like, as you said, with being able to reach out to your idols, or just connecting with people so easily over the internet is also great for fans and the musicians to be able to see what people think about your music, to be able to connect with them.
Yeah.
And create a personal relationship with people.
And have the opportunity to find these people who are like-minded, as you mentioned, right? Because for me locally, there are a lot of people that like the same style of music and the same things, but oftentimes I find myself speaking more with people over the internet just because maybe they're also producers and they're sharing music or whatever, and suddenly you're speaking with people around the world, as you mentioned. I mean, it's an incredible opportunity, I think, right now. And this podcast, this podcast wouldn't be able to take place if there wasn't Instagram and Discord, for sure. I mean, maybe email, if I could email people, but
that would be a very elaborate process.
Right.
Yeah, but definitely possible.
Right.
But yeah, so I think like the internet is very great in that sense as well, and with people who never find someone that's like them. For example, if you're in small towns or small cities, you might never find a person that's like you if you're kind of different in a way.
Right.
And I think the internet can find people you can connect with that you might never discovered or found otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah.
I, for example, live in I live quite far away from any big city. I live basically out in the woods. And in that sense, I know almost nobody that actually, at least locally, that's into electronic music in the same way that I am.
Oh, yeah.
And the first person I found online that ever connected with me with electronic music, like, made me discover that there's other people that like it as well.
Yeah.
And that's and when I first found it on YouTube, I think I found Deadmau5 for the first time on YouTube. I think it was Strobe.
Oh.
And I was, and it took me off guard. I've never heard anything like it. I was obsessed for like months with that song.
That's my all-time favorite song. It's perfect. Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing. And if it hadn't been for like the internet or friends that I found online introducing me to new sounds by other artists, and going deeper down into the rabbit hole, it's amazing.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. I think that also with exposure to music, as you mentioned, for myself, I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for some of those artists that just spoke to me on such a deep level that made me want to make music and inspired this podcast and things like that. Deadmau5 being one of them for sure. He's a huge influence, and I don't think I would be as in love with electronic music if it wasn't for some of the stuff he's done. It's just, it's, for me, it's on its own tier. It's amazing. But so just to speak to that again, having all of that at your fingertips is amazing. And, I think your story is so cool because, as you mentioned, you're a bit secluded, as you mentioned, in the middle of the woods, but communicating with Lane 8, spending time working on music, showing him these demos, and this has opened up this crazy path.
I played my first Khåen gig in Amsterdam at the venue called Melkweg, and that was a very surreal experience, and it would never been possible without Lane 8. So I'm forever thankful to him to taking me out there and show me the ropes and just being a great guy. He's an amazing guy, and I have all the respect in the world for him for truly doing. I think a lot of musicians that get bigger say they want to pay it back, but they never do. Yeah. And I think Lane 8 has gone above and beyond what he ever above and beyond. What he needed to do.
That's awesome.
And he never needed to do that, and it's just amazing that he did that. And also with Duchess, our collaboration.
Yeah. It's a beautiful song. Yeah.
Which I think I asked him actually if he wanted to work on it, because I didn't think the melody had the song didn't have the energy it needed. And I asked him if he would be interested in help me out on it and maybe take it to another level, and he definitely did that. And I have so much respect for him.
What was that process like then? So you had the track you were kind of working on, as you mentioned. It needed some things in your opinion, so you passed it off to him. Were you then sending the music back and forth and adding bits here and there, or what's that like? Because I'm always fascinated with that collaborative process at a distance, right? Because you guys weren't together, you're passing music back and forth. What was that like?
So it can be quite different. In some instances, it's it's almost like a tennis match. You send it off maybe 5 to 10 times back and forth and tweak things. But I found with Lane 8 it was very, very simple, because I made it was a melody I fell in love with quite quickly, and it came to me quite fast. In general, I think the ideas that I don't have to ponder over and come quickly and are very explosive are the ones that make for the best songs. Yeah. So but with everything else around the melody, I didn't think it sat quite right. But I felt the melody had something magical about it. So I sent him the song, asked if this is something he could elevate in some way, and then he said, for sure, I'll give it a shot and see what comes of it, because you never know. It could be like artists have good days and bad days. Maybe he couldn't take it to in the direction he wanted to as well, you know?
Right.
But yeah, he came back maybe 4 days later. He had made an amazing improvement to it, had made it flow much better, made it have the impact it need to have. And maybe I took a few listens, gave him some pointers of, I think, what I thought could be like make the song even better, and that was done. It was a very simple process with Lane 8. He's battle hardened, to put it like that, so he probably knows what the song needs straight away to make it work. And as you produce or get better at your craft, I think it demands less time of you to know what it needs to have, you know?
Right. You get to, over time, you've done it so often that, it becomes almost second nature over time to just pick out the little things that need to change. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's no there's no way around getting to that point without hard work, you know?
Yeah.
And back in the day, I remember I saw producer videos of people, how they made sounds, and I saw, you know, I know what you work on, but in Ableton you have this chain at the bottom.
Uh-huh.
And I remember seeing these huge chains, didn't know how they worked, didn't know how synthesizers work, you know. Now you make sounds in the end without thinking of it. You equalize and compress things without thinking of it, and like there's no shortcut to those things in any way. It becomes memory, you know. In the end, muscle memory.
Right.
For any craft, really.
And I think one thing, this is what I've noticed with myself, starting from, background in piano when I was much younger, and guitar and these different things, but focusing in on producing as a hobby. When you listen to electronic music, maybe without a tuned ear, it's harder to piece apart the different aspects, if you will. So when I can listen to a track after producing for a little bit of time, you can piece out how the different frequencies lay on top of each other. So you can kind of pull apart like kick, bass, mid-range, high, but you get almost a different sense of it. At least for myself, I think of it from the producer's perspective. I'm like, oh, okay, I kind of see why they layered this in this kind of certain sense. Whereas I knew maybe 6 months or a year before that, it would just sound like one cohesive piece and I wouldn't be able to do this. Yeah.
And I think that's really cool. That's a really cool way. It kind of opens up your senses a bit with being able to distinguish different sounds inside a composition. I also think, though, it has kind of a drawback with maybe thinking too critically of your favorite songs.
Oh, yeah.
At least I noticed that happened with me, especially with electronic music, which I can relate to more and I listen to a lot. So, and I started thinking of it from a mixing standpoint, like why I started criticizing songs that I really liked, you know?
Yeah.
And that was very, very bad for me, because in the end I had to take breaks from songs because they annoyed me. Like, why did they do that? It could have sounded much better if they did that. And so that's kind of a sacrifice you have to make, I think, when you go the road down of in depth of like getting into audio and like behind the curtains, you know?
Yep. Then the things that you put out might not mean quite as much as they would have 3 or 4 years before, you know? Like, I think that as you progress, you'll do these amazing things in your work, right? So just think about what you've released with Solace in the Night. You might look at it now and piece it apart and be like, well, I like this part, but, because you've done it and you understand the process of going about it. But if you go back 3 years and think about if you could send that album to yourself 3 years ago and see what you would think, you'd be like, oh my God, this is amazing,
Yeah.
So it's a curse in a little bit of a sense, yeah.
I definitely agree. It's I hope it becomes kind of a timeless one for me, like in the way that I won't be embarrassed by it. But in the end, I think one shouldn't be too hard on oneself regarding that thing, because I think you'll almost always think your own work is quite bad, especially when time passes by.
Yeah.
And because so when I listen to an old song, which everything was horrible, nothing was mixed, I think of it more like a stepping stone, and not like, oh, I sucked back there. I can't believe I ever made that. I should have, because you can't be discouraged by your old work. I think it's a stepping stone, and it shows character when you keep going and pushing through hard times when nothing sounds the way you want it to, and when you listen to other people's music, you can't even compare, because you think your music is so much worse,
Right. Oh,
so,
absolutely.
But I think at the same time, Yeah,
No.
you go.
Oh, no, it's okay. I was just going to say, I think that's a great way to look at it as a stepping stone rather than beating yourself up. Because, yeah, you wouldn't have gotten to where you are today without all of those steps. You know, it could have been that you did one of those tracks and you're like, I don't know, this is crap and I don't like it and blah, 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 and stop producing, and you wouldn't have gotten to today. You know, it's all part of the process. Yeah. One thing, not to move a bit around here too much, but as you mentioned, so you played that show in Amsterdam, and one thing I really wanted to dig into was I read in the bio, or in your bio, excuse me, on Facebook, that you look to incorporate live components into a performance. So what's that like? Yeah, I would definitely want to dig into that.
So it's nothing too fancy. I hope to elaborate on it as I start being able to put together tours, hopefully. But at the moment, it's quite a simple thing where I have a few controllers and I stem out my songs in parts. And I usually organize them by key. Yeah. And this makes it able to, I want to be able to flawlessly, even more so than DJs do, incorporate elements from my other songs into current songs also control the energy more fluidly and more seamless, you know? Yeah. In the way I present how songs come together. I can extend the breaks, I can extend drops, you know? I can introduce the synth from the next song earlier, and I can remove elements whenever I want and create different parts whenever I want. I can, and also do like mashups of other songs on the fly if I want. So it's very much a process of me controlling the energy and being able to hopefully for people that has listened to my music notice that there's something that's not right with that song. There's something else with the song this time around than it was last time, you know? Yeah. And I'm slowly getting there. It's a very time-consuming process, and I played a show in. I also played in September. I played in London, also courtesy of Lane 8. And I was sitting like 24 hours before I had no sleep because I wanted to be perfect. So it's very time-consuming effort as well. Oh, that's very, very, very fun, and it also motivates me to create edits of songs, which I wouldn't have otherwise. And oh, it's so cool because I just love that aspect. So I know a lot of times when a given electronic producer will perform live, a lot of it can be predefined, right? And so sometimes it's from a producer's standpoint, I can kind of watch and be like, okay, this is amazing. But to contrast that with having a live aspect where you are splicing in things, where you have those stems that you're bringing in, and then you're not just thinking about what this set is going to be like 3 or 4 days ago. It's in the moment, right? When the people are reacting as to how you want to bring in those stems differently. I think that's amazing. It creates some freedom, and it also, from a stage aspect, it also gets me way more involved in a physical manner, where I have to do everything at the moment, or it won't work in a way. In contrast to DJs, which tends to standing still way more, because it's when you DJ, you basically stand there for 5 minutes and then you mix in a new song, right? And DJ is an art, of course, don't get me wrong, but it tends to be people stand around and pretend to do something, because there's really nothing to do for 5 minutes until you have to mix the next tune. So in that sense, I think it's I don't have to pretend to do something, because if I stop doing things fall on its head quite quickly, you know? Yeah. I was fortunate enough just maybe a month ago to see Deadmau5 play live, and he was in the Cube. And I know for a live performance like that, with all of the lights synced up, everything has to, move in a succinct order. So a lot of that is pre-written and predefined as to how that set list is going to play. But I noticed that, and I've seen some videos on this as well, but I know that he has this customized like MIDI controller for the stems almost on this huge screen in the Cube. And I was close enough to where I could see that one of the tracks, I forget the name of the track now, it was one of his more electronic focused tracks, rather than a lot of his set was maybe more orchestral electronic. But this song in
in particular is very heavy electronic, and I could tell based on his movements and based on how I knew the song was changing that he was pulling in different stems, and that changed the experience for me. I mean, it went from amazing regardless, but
it went from amazing to amazing.
right. But then you could see that there was this live influence, and he was having or right in real time influence of how the song was going to play out, and it changed everything. It was amazing.
Yeah, I think for people that are more interested in the artist, I think it gives some more. It makes you appreciate the artist more. Yeah. Of course, when you go to festivals, there's a lot of people that they're just there to get drunk, but hopefully they have a good time as well with live artists. And definitely, when you say like with a lot of things has to be predefined, and I think that stands true. The more parts that get involved, with the more advanced you have to have with lights having to be synchronized and different effects like pyro and things like that. You don't have that much freedom to how you want to arrange things. For example, I saw an interview. There was a rumor like with I remember when Swedish House Mafia was around. They have a comeback now, but the last time they were around, there were rumors circulating that the entire set was completely pre-mixed.
Right.
And it turned out to be true because at that time, to get everything synced up, you had to have everything perfectly, and with pyrotechnics, everything had to be synced up.
Right.
So for like an hour to make everything perfect.
And I see, I totally get it, because just to add this as an example, just before Deadmau5 went on, right? So before they brought out this massive cube, and it was this amazing experience. The DJ before, I actually didn't know the name. They're a well-known DJ, but it would be a 30-second clip of a song, and then it would switch to another 30-second clip of a song that was maybe a popular song from the 90s, and then 30 seconds of Wonderwall. And it's like, at that point I'm like, what are we I don't mean to be too much of a hater, but like, to look at the two, it's night and day, right? I mean, and I know that with popular electronic music now at these huge festivals, a lot of it is almost a bit of a show as to what's happening behind the DJ booth versus, the tracks are all pre-written, right? It's probably pre-recorded. It just, so to see that you're taking it in another direction, you want to have that influence of that live experience, and you want to have control over what's happening in that moment, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, so I never looked at myself much of a DJ. I was producer first.
Yeah.
Was definitely enamored by being able to stand behind decks and playing to big crowds, but the aspect of DJing has never really interested me much as the time went on.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be more characteristic of me to bring the producer out to the crowd rather than changing into a DJ when I play gigs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have much more control behind Ableton than I have behind the Pioneers, and I feel way more comfortable and at home behind my computer, even on stage.
Oh, yeah. Because a lot of times that's where 95% of the time is going to be, for a producer, you're going to be on Ableton most of the time, and then develop a sound and get recognition, all these things. And then, okay, now I have the opportunity to play. It's totally different than someone who focuses more on playing DJ sets at clubs, right? And I don't mean to emphasize one over the other, right? But it is totally different. Most of the times, producers who are going to end up playing their own music live at a show spend most of the time in their bedroom or their studio working on music, 100%. Yeah.
But at the same time, all respect to DJs, it's I said that don't do anything, but that's completely wrong in the sense that the focus of a DJ, I think, is creating more of a journey, being able to control the energy in what tracks you choose. And I could never do live for 7 hours or 6 hours or an entire night long, God forbid, because I wouldn't have the energy for it. I wouldn't be able to keep up. My brain would fry. Yeah. So I have to limit. You have to limit live sets a bit, because if you play too long, there's too much to keep track of.
Yeah.
And so when I see DJs having all night long events, that's commendable, because that's amazing to start off at like 7 p.m. and go on until 6 a.m.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Totally. And I just, touching back on this process that you're looking to, move forward with, as in, incorporating these live elements into a show, an event. I think it's so cool because that in itself will become this creative process because, right, each show is going to be different. Your mental state in each show is going to be a bit different. You'll have the ability, to pull in different things as you wish, making each show unique. And I would just love to, be able to, maybe after you've done it for, 50 or 100 times or whatever, just, pick your brain. Cause I would imagine that there's some you could say like, oh my God, I just got in the zone with this particular show. And I just like got in this flow state. I zoned out. And then what came through it was just amazing. I think all that stuff would be so interesting to dig into.
Yeah, definitely. When I play more shows, I'll definitely get more of a feel of how it works. And I've already experienced those moments when I kind of let go, when I've gotten comfortable, and the controls and what I'm doing kind of goes more in a muscle memory and feel kind of thing, and then it becomes much more fun when you see the crowd responding, and you can, for example, I went back into, I usually create my songs with very short breaks, but I noticed like the first time around the break wasn't enough, so I went back. I was playing Duchess, and I noticed people were responding really well to it, so I went back a second time and extended the break even longer.
Oh, cool.
So because I thought like that would bring the energy up a second time. I would never be able to do that in a DJ sense, because unless I had cue points and things, then it might be possible, but to extend it would never be possible in the way live allowed me to do. And things like that. Yeah, very, very, and being able to control the energy of a single tune on the fly the way I want to is something I sought out very clearly when I started planning my live sets.
Yeah. Oh, it's so cool. I really look forward to, hearing more about that and learning more about that, because I don't know, that stuff interests me so much. And I would imagine, as you've alluded to here a bit, that of course each one's going to be different, but you'll get in that state where, you kind of move over to muscle memory and you're really in the zone. And then, that reaction from the crowd, I would imagine is so much more fulfilling almost, because then it's this energetic, connection between you and the crowd. It's like this moment between you and the crowd. It's happening as one cohesive thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I really appreciate that. It makes me when I did it right, when I played the Amsterdam show, I thought this wasn't worth it. It was too much work for nothing, because I didn't feel I fully realized what I wanted, what my mission was with the live set that time around.
Yeah.
But so I kept chiseling away at it during like the summer months, and then when I came back and played the September gig, I felt I had much more control, and at that time I felt I really had nailed it, or at least completed the missions I wanted to. Of course, I'm never done tweaking it as I add in new songs and take away other songs and make improvements. But that time around, I felt I had been able to do what I want to do. I could control the things I wanted to control. And I never felt out of depth being there that time around. So that was very fun.
Oh yeah, that's so cool. So then on the horizon, then of course there's going to be more touring and more releases. Do you expect? Is there talks right now of doing United States tours or anything like that, or where do you look right now? Is it just kind of day-to-day work on the music? Of course, this release just came out. I mean, just to emphasize, Solace in the Night is only beginning of this month, right? Early November.
It came out 1st November,
Yeah.
So we'll see. There's currently I emphasize on creating more music and developing the sound, so I have something future-proof. But we'll see what 2019 brings. There's nothing set yet currently.
Yeah.
But hopefully I can make my way down there soon. That would be very, very fun. Never been to either Americas before.
Okay.
So
yeah. Cool. Oh, that would be
yeah. Very, very much fun. I hope to go there for like different reasons. I have friends there as well, so visiting them and in the same run, hopefully,
Yeah.
So we'll see. But currently, there's talks. There's definitely a music plan for 2019, 100%.
Yeah.
And I'm just working on building more releases that I can be proud of for 2019, and hopefully a tour will follow soon.
We'll see. That's exciting. I would imagine, it's in such this an exciting place right now with This Never Happened, because now there's been two compilation releases. Of course, there's been standalone releases from you and Anderholm. I can imagine that moving into the future, of course, there'll be more of that. And if there were tours, around all of the artists on the releases, that would be just amazing. So yeah.
It's slowly starting to take shape as more people join in, and Lane 8 is it's a very good ear. I like everything I've heard from the other artists on there as well.
Yeah.
And hopefully I'll be... I've only met Anderholm currently from Great Guy. I've only met him from the roster. Hopefully I'll get to meet the other ones as well, and we can present this and this Never Happened event, hopefully. Or,
that'd be so cool. Yeah.
Well,
and that must
we'll see. I hope that's the case. Yeah.
And that must be so fun to be part of this like growing community now, because you're meeting, as you mentioned, Anderholm, and you're looking to meet everyone else on the roster. That must just be so exciting to have this kind of small knit community of people releasing music all in the same path. Like the sound is its own distinct thing of each artist and its own distinct genre aside from other labels, but to be in this little community, if you will, and moving forward must be really exciting.
Yeah, it definitely is. And as I said, I've said it so many times, but all respect to Lane 8 for like giving not only me but all the other artists on there the chance to shine. And there's definitely talent there that needs to be recognized by people. Not only me, but Anderholm and Avor, Solanka, and more. All these people, incredible music. And Lena has a great ear, and so much fun to see it grow and more artists being bring in,
Yeah. It's funny, we were speaking about this before and over Instagram and before we started recording, but it's just such a weird coincidence that, I reached out to you and we're talking over Instagram. We're looking for a time to record, and we land on today. And I'm actually going to see Lane 8 tonight in Arizona. I mean, it's the weirdest. Yeah. It's such a bizarre coincidence. I don't know. It's the universe,
what a coincidence. When you scream, Khåen says hi to Lane 8 when at the show.
yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, but you must be pumped. That's I've never been to Lane 8 as I've been into the crowd, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
You're in for a treat, man.
Oh, I'm so excited. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, this will be my first time. Yeah.
Yeah. Chatting with Khåen first and then going out to Lane 8. That's very on the same day. That's very fun, man.
It's very fun. And, yeah,
what a coincidence.
yeah. And I mean, again, just thank you to coming on and doing this. I'm just so appreciative of how this has happened, because when I started it, I really did not think that I'd be able to reach out to people and have this response. Everyone who I've reached out to almost across the board has been either very nice and said, hey, it's just not the right time or whatever, or willing to do this and come on and take time out of your day to have these conversations. It's so cool. I just feel super fortunate, again, as you mentioned, have this conversation today, and now I'm going to see Lane 8 tonight. It's just, it's surreal. So it's super, super cool.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's quite an important thing to take note of as well, what you said about reaching out,
Yeah.
I think many people are very appreciative and are very well willing when you reach out to them.
Yeah.
If you reach out in the right way, particularly, because nothing with This Never Happened, let me stress this, like nothing with This Never Happened, or many other things in the Khåen project would have taken place had I not taken the first step to reach out,
Yeah.
People can't be on the lookout to notice every artist or notice every person or podcast for that instance. So
absolutely, yeah.
Reaching out is very important.
Yeah.
And it can build relationships, opportunities, and many other things that you might never thought possible.
Oh yeah. No, I could not agree more. I mean, if you're, say, working on whatever that craft is, music, podcast, film, whatever it is, and you don't put yourself out there and reach out to people and say, hey, can I share this with you? Or I'm very interested in sharing my music with you because I'm so, enamored with the music you make and the albums that you put together, whatever. I mean, if you don't take those steps, it's going to be more challenging for someone to stumble upon it. You have to put yourself out there. And, I think when it's done in a genuine way, by the beautiful music you're making, by reaching out to Lane and saying, hey, I've been working on demos. Can I share this with you? And he'll see in the music right away that you put in the time and that you are serious about this, then you're going to get that response, so he's going to say, I think that just comes through almost immediately, whether it's a genuine interaction or if it's just, people get automated messages on Instagram for marketing. It's a totally different thing.
It becomes very transparent when something's fake. And also, even if I'd sent music to Lane and it hadn't been that good, or I'm not saying my music is good, but I think if you approach in the right way, people are willing to help regardless,
Yeah.
And there's so many well-wishing people out there. I generally think there's a lot of people that want good for the world and want to help others. And Daniel Lanate is definitely an example of that.
Yeah.
And as I said, never be afraid of reaching out. In anything, the worst thing that can happen is a no or no response. And in that case, you've tried your best,
Right. And I think almost across the board, anyone who will talk about their success in whatever their path is, music or business or whatever, whatever their path is, people that find success usually will reach out like this a lot. And a lot of times, it'll be
lots of rejection along the way.
Lots of rejection. And they, you just keep moving forward and you keep working on it. And I think if it's honest and you're working hard, things typically will work out in your favor. The emphasis is there, I think so. Yeah. So I don't know. It's very cool. And I one other thing to mention, especially moving into 2019, there's going to be more releases, playing live more. I would be more than happy and I'd be honored to do this again in the future. So, having the chance to talk whatever, a year down the road, 2 years down, whatever it is, just to see how this thing has changed and taken shape and how the music has transformed and all these things. I'd love to do it.
Yeah, definitely, man. I would love to be back. It was great talking to you and very fun to talk about things surrounding music in all aspects. And so after a while in 2019, I would definitely be up for getting back to this conversation.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, cool.
With more experience, 100%.
Awesome. Well, perfect. Well, thanks again. This has been super cool.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It was really, really fun talking to you, and I appreciate you reaching out.
Awesome. Yeah. All right, that's it for episode 16. Thank you again to Khåen for coming on, joining for today's episode. That was an awesome one. I always love doing these, and this one especially, I had an awesome time doing this. So thank you. If you'd like to check out his music, again, you can go find him on Spotify, SoundCloud. He is on the This Never Happened playlist on Spotify. So if you do follow that playlist by This Never Happened, of course, Lane 8's record label, you can find his music there. Check out the album that we were speaking about quite a bit on today's episode, Solace in the Night, and go and show your support. Check him out. Follow him on Instagram. That's Khaen on Instagram. And that's it. So new episodes coming. Look for that next episode coming next Wednesday. And until then, I hope to speak with you all again soon. You all again soon.